The kitchen smells wrong. Not rotten, worse. It smells like grief. I stand at the marble counter of the Moretti penthouse at 5:47 a.m. My hands already moving through the motions I've performed 300 times in the 2 months I've worked here. Egg whites into the copper bowl. Sugar measured to the gram. Butter always unsalted. Always room temperature, waiting like a secret. But something is off. The recipe isn't new. It's written in the worn leather notebook that sits in the locked drawer, the one I was shown exactly once by Alessandro Moretti's house manager, with instructions whispered like a confession. Make this every Tuesday and Friday morning. Don't ask questions. Don't deviate. No one explained why. No one explained why a man who employs 17 staff members, who owns half the city's commercial real estate, who moves through the world like something carved from black marble and violence, why he needed a pastry chef, who came at dawn, alone, to bake a single dish. Zabaglione. Italian sponge cake, light as air, brushed with sweet wine. You're going to curdle those, a voice says behind me. I don't jump. I've learned not to. Alessandro Moretti doesn't announce himself, he simply appears, like a thought you didn't know you were having. I turn. He's standing in the doorway in a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled, his dark hair still damp from the shower. There's a bruise along his jaw that wasn't there yesterday. It's the kind of bruise that comes from someone's knuckles, not from anything accidental. They're fine, I say, returning to the bowl. My hand is steady. I've trained it to be. 2 more minutes. You're distracted. He moves into the kitchen, and the space shrinks. Alessandro Moretti is tall, but it's not his height that takes up room. It's something else. Something that makes the air feel thinner. I'm not. Lie. I can taste it, bitter on my tongue. He sits at the counter, watching. He always watches when I make this cake. The first time I met Alessandro Moretti, he didn't tell me he was dangerous. The house manager did that. He's particular about his morning routine, she'd said, which was the kind of understatement that made me understand immediately that I should not ask too many questions. I've asked none. What I've done instead is observe, carefully, the way his hands grip his coffee cup tight, like he's containing something, the way his eyes track the cake as it comes together, as if he's watching something more important than flour and eggs, the way his jaw clenches when he thinks no one is looking, and the small, almost imperceptible softening that happens when I slide the finished cake in front of him. He never eats much. 3 bites, maybe 4, then he pushes it away. And his assistant, a pale man named Ricardo with scars on his knuckles, takes it to wrap in plastic, to store in a refrigerator I've never seen. Your precision is improving, he says now, and there's something in his voice that makes my stomach tighten. Not attraction. Something stranger, something that sounds like grief dressed up as observation. It's the same recipe, I say. Every time. Exactly. He leans forward. His eyes are gray-green, the color of storm water, which means the difference isn't in the measurements. It's in you. There's something beneath that statement. A weight. A meaning I can't quite touch. The recipe doesn't require creativity, I tell him, whisking harder than necessary. It requires discipline. So does everything worth doing. He reaches across the counter and his fingers brush the edge of the mixing bowl, not quite touching me, but close enough that I feel the temperature change in my skin. Tell me something, Julia. Why did you take this job? It's the most personal question he's ever asked me. In 2 months, I've learned his coffee order espresso, no sugar, taken at precisely 6:15 a.m., his schedule sporadic, violent, unpredictable, and the fact that he doesn't sleep or doesn't sleep well. I've learned the sound of his footsteps on the marble floors, the way he moves through his own home like he's trespassing. But I've told him almost nothing about myself. I needed work, I say. You could work anywhere. Your credentials are exceptional. The Michelin-starred restaurant in Milano would have hired you. The private chef position with the Visconti family, how do you know about that? I stop whisking. The bowl suddenly feels very heavy in my hands. I know everything about the people in my home. He says it without malice. It's just fact. A simple statement about how the world works in his version of it, including the fact that you turned down 3 other positions to come here. To make this cake, to bake something you'd never made before, to learn from a recipe written in handwriting that isn't yours. My hands are shaking now. I set the bowl down. Why am I here? I ask. And I'm asking the question I've been afraid to ask since the interview, since I saw the weight in his eyes and recognized it as the weight of someone who has lost something that cannot be replaced. Not really. Not why. He stands, He's very still. The kind of still that comes right before violence. I think, though, I have no experience with violence, no reference point for what that feels like. But I sense it the way you sense a drop in atmospheric pressure before a storm. Because, he says quietly, you make it the way she did. The words hang in the air. Who? Don't. His voice is sharp, final. Don't ask that question, but it's too late. The question is already multiplying in my mind. Who is she? Who was she? Why does a man like this, dangerous, controlled, feared, why does he wake up every morning wanting to taste something connected to someone else? And underneath that, why does he look at me like I'm a ghost? Ricardo will show you out, he says, and he's already moving toward the door, his phone in his hand, his attention already fractured into whatever else consumes a man like Alessandro Moretti. We won't need you to return next week. The rejection hits like a physical thing. Did something go wrong with the cake? My voice sounds very small in the marble kitchen. He stops. He doesn't turn around. But in the space of 3 breaths, everything changes. I see his shoulders shift. I see his hand, the one holding his phone, tighten, until his knuckles go white. No, he says, and the word sounds like it costs him something. It was perfect. He leaves, and I stand alone in the kitchen that smells like grief, with a zabaglione only half finished, with the terrible, certain knowledge that I've just stumbled into something far deeper and more dangerous than a simple job. The cake on the counter, the one I'd finished yesterday, sits in a ceramic dish covered with plastic wrap. It's untouched. He didn't eat it this morning. I reach for it, pull back the plastic, and something in my chest cracks open, because now that he said it, I can see it too. This cake isn't mine, it's hers. And somehow, for the last 8 weeks, I've been impersonating a dead woman. The house manager won't return my calls. Ricardo, the pale, scarred man, meets me at the service entrance on the street below the Moretti penthouse. It's raining, a thin, persistent rain that makes the Milan streets shine like wet glass. He hands me an envelope. His expression suggests he's done this before. Inside, 2 months' wages and a note written in a script I now recognize as not my own. Do not return. Do not contact this address. Do not speak of your employment here. There's no signature. There doesn't need to be. I spend 3 days trying to convince myself that I'm relieved. I spend the next 4 days researching Alessandro Moretti. It's easier than I expected. There's a Wikipedia entry, though it's vague in the way that Wikipedia entries for wealthy men sometimes are. Moretti, Alessandro B., 1987, Italian businessman, real estate holdings across northern Italy, philanthropist, education, Liceo Classico, then University of Milan. The philanthropist part seems designed to bury something. I've learned that in 2 months of living in his home, that the people who most need cover are the ones who have the most to hide. There are society photos. Alessandro at galas, Alessandro at business functions, Alessandro standing beside a blonde woman in a white wedding dress, his arm around her waist, her head tilted toward his like she's caught his scent and can't pull away. The caption reads, Alessandro Moretti and Isabel Rousseau at their engagement dinner, Milan, 2018. I click on her name, Isabel Rousseau, French-Italian, daughter of a shipping magnate. Education in Switzerland. Interests, art, philanthropy, cooking. Past tense, I realize, skimming the articles. Everything about her is in past tense. Isabel Rousseau Moretti, beloved wife of Alessandro, passed away peacefully in, the article doesn't say how, just that she died 4 years ago. She was 28. I close the browser. My hands are shaking. The zabaglione suddenly makes a terrible, perfect sense. On the 8th day after being dismissed, my phone rings. Unknown number. I almost don't answer. Miss Giulia Sartori? The voice is female, cultured, careful. I'm Margot. I work for Alessandro. Not in the house. In other capacities. I don't ask what those capacities are. He wants to see you, she continues. Tomorrow. 8 p.m. The address is... I got his note. I interrupt. I'm not coming back. There's a pause. I can hear the rain in the background. And something else, traffic. Distant and urban. Then he'll come to you, Margot says flatly. And he won't leave. And eventually, people will notice. People always notice when he takes an interest in someone. The implication hangs between us. I don't know what he wants, I say. Neither does he, yet. But you should come to the address anyway. It's safer. Margot leaves the address. She doesn't say goodbye. I should ignore it. I should change my phone number, find another job, disappear into the anonymous city of Milan, and forget that I ever walked into a marble kitchen and saw grief written in a man's eyes. Instead, at 7:55 p.m., I'm standing outside a building I don't recognize in a neighborhood I've never heard of. Rain soaking through my jacket, my heart doing something dangerous and accelerating behind my ribs. The building is old, not decrepit, but old in the way that Italian buildings are old, layered with decades, with secrets, with a history that clings to the brick like damp. There's no sign, no indication of what exists behind the dark wooden door. I knock. Margot opens it. She's younger than I expected, maybe 30, with dark curly hair and eyes that miss nothing. She's dressed all in black. She's also, I realize with a jolt, carrying a gun visible in a shoulder holster beneath an open blazer. "Come in," she says. The interior is a converted warehouse. Exposed brick, high ceilings, industrial lighting. It doesn't look like a place Alessandro Moretti would spend time. It's too rough, too real. But I can smell him here. That particular scent leather, expensive cologne, something underneath that might be gunpowder or might be fear. "He's upstairs," Margot says, gesturing to a metal staircase. "Don't touch anything, and don't scream, even if it looks dramatic. It's just his morning routine." I climb the stairs with the certainty of someone walking towards something that will change them. The second floor is an office. Minimalist. A desk, a chair, windows overlooking the rain-soaked city, and Alessandro, standing with his back to me, his silhouette framed against the lights of Milan. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he says without turning. "You didn't give me a choice." "Everyone has choices." He turns. The bruise on his jaw is worse, a deep purple edged with yellow. "Most people are just afraid to make them." "Is that what this is?" I ask. "Testing to see if I'm afraid?" "No." He moves toward me, slowly, and I force myself not to step backward. "This is me trying to understand how you know how to cook her food the way she did." The word "her" hangs in the air. "Isabel. The dead wife." "I followed a recipe," I say. "No." He's close now. Close enough that I can see the exact shade of his eyes, not gray-green, but something more complex. Stormwater with amber underneath. "Recipes are instructions. What you did was remember. You cooked from something deeper. Every motion, every moment of hesitation, every time you added something a fraction slower than the timing suggested, it was her muscle memory, her precision, her love. That's impossible. So is half of what I do." He reaches out. His fingers brush a strand of wet hair from my face. The touch is gentle. It shouldn't be dangerous coming from someone like him, but it is. It's the most dangerous thing he's done. "Tell me the truth. Before you came to cook for me, before you learned that recipe, did you ever dream of Isabel?" The question is so specific, so strange, that for a moment I can't breathe. "No," I whisper. "Liar," he says, but there's no anger in it, just certainty. "You dreamed of her hands, of watching her hands move through the kitchen while she whispered instructions in a language you didn't speak, but understood anyway." I pull back from him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," he steps back, his expression darkening into something I can't read, "that you're either the most extraordinary coincidence in my life, or you're the most dangerous thing I've let into my home. And I need to know which one." He moves to his desk. There's a file there. He opens it, pulls out photographs. My photographs. From the day I was born. From my childhood in the Piedmont region. From every school I attended. Every address I've lived at. Every person I've been close to. It's complete. Terrifyingly complete. "Your mother's name is Lucia," he says quietly. "Your father, Marco, dead 8 years. You learned to cook from your grandmother, Amelia, who died in a hospital in Turin when you were 17. She was French on her mother's side, from Lyon. Her maiden name was Rousseau." The room tilts. "No," I breathe. "Yes." He watches me with those dangerous eyes. "Your grandmother's sister was married to a shipping magnate named Claude Rousseau. They had one daughter, Isabel. The ground is gone. I'm falling. Isabel Rousseau Moretti was your cousin. Blood related, even if your families never officially acknowledged it. And somehow," he leans forward, "somehow, in the last 2 months, you've cooked her recipe with her exact precision, using only an inherited skill passed down through women who'd never met you." I can't speak. I can't breathe. "So I need to know," Alessandro says, his voice dropping to something that sounds almost like fear. "Whether you came to my kitchen knowing who you were, whether someone sent you, whether this is revenge, or manipulation, or Or what? I manage to ask. Or whether my wife, he says, and the words shatter something in both of us, is somehow still reaching for me across the dark, still trying to be the one to teach you how to cook her way. The rain hammers against the industrial windows, and I understand, finally, why he dismissed me. Because looking at me, someone who carries Isabel's blood, someone who has moved through her kitchen like a memory, someone who has learned her secrets without knowing they were hers, he sees a ghost. And he's terrified. Not of me, of believing in something he thought was impossible. He doesn't believe me when I tell him I didn't know. But he also can't prove that I'm lying, which is worse, because over the next week, as he allows me to return to the kitchen under supervision, always under surveillance, Margot watching from the corners, I realize that he's searching for it, for the moment when my performance cracks. For evidence that this is calculated. It isn't. But I understand why he needs it to be. A woman who cooks her dead wife's recipe by accident is a ghost story. A woman who's sent deliberately is a problem to be solved. He'd prefer the problem, the vanilla, he says on the 7th day, standing in the kitchen at 5:47 a.m. as he does every morning now. You hesitate before adding it. I set down the measuring spoon. I don't, actually. I hesitate before the wine. The vanilla is fine. No. You hesitate with the vanilla. Your hand slows. You measure twice. He steps closer. His eyes are tracking my face, like he's reading something written in invisible ink. She did that too. She said the vanilla was the most dangerous ingredient, that it was easy to overpower everything, that you had to be sure before you committed to it. I can feel my pulse in my throat. I measure twice with everything, I say. I measure twice with salt, with sugar, with the butter. No, only the vanilla. He reaches out, takes my hand. His fingers are warm, rough. Your hand knows something your mind doesn't. That's not something you can fake. That's not something someone sends you to a kitchen to perform without instruction. For the first time since he called me to the warehouse, I see something shift in his expression. The wall between suspicion and acceptance thinning. When did your grandmother die? He asks. I was 17, February. Isabel was born in July. She would have been. He pauses, calculating. 8 years younger than your grandmother would have been at the time. They never met. Not officially. The families weren't in contact. I don't know anything about that, I say truthfully. My family doesn't talk about relatives who married outside. My grandmother rarely mentioned her heritage. But she taught you to cook. Yes. From when I was small. She said it was the only real language that food told the truth about who people were. His grip on my hand tightens. She said that? Those exact words? As close as I can remember. I was a child. He pulls me closer. I should be afraid. Every instinct tells me to pull away, to run, to recognize this moment as dangerous in a way that goes beyond physical harm. Instead, I let him. The first time Isabel cooked for me, he says softly, she made zabaglione. I didn't understand why she chose it. It was so simple, so light. She said it was what her great-grandmother taught her, that it was a recipe built on faith, that if you whisked the eggs over gentle heat, didn't rush, didn't panic, the mixture would become air. Become something from almost nothing. He's not looking at me. He's looking through me. I said it was impractical, that it would collapse the moment anything real happened to it. She said that was the point, that things built on faith always looked fragile until you actually tried to destroy them. The kitchen is very quiet. After she died, he continues, I couldn't eat it. Margot would bring me the ingredients, and I would sit in that marble kitchen and just watch, sometimes for hours. I couldn't cook it myself. It didn't work when I tried. My hands were too angry. The eggs would break. The mixture would collapse. He releases my hand, steps back. I hired someone to cook it, a professional. It was correct. Perfect technique. Completely soulless. He walks to the window, looks out at the city waking in the gray morning light. After 3 months, I fired her, paid her to not speak about what happened in my kitchen. What did happen? I destroyed it, he says flatly. Every morning, I would watch her cook it perfectly, and then I would throw it in the trash. The marble counters, the equipment. I rebuilt the kitchen twice, because she kept trying to understand why her perfect technique was unacceptable. I'm beginning to understand who Alessandro Moretti is. Not a criminal, or not just a criminal. Something sadder and more dangerous. A man in love with a ghost, trying to find her in other people, destroying them when they inevitably fail to contain her. Why did you hire me? I ask. He turns. His eyes are red-rimmed but dry. Too dry. Like he hasn't cried since Isabel died. Like his grief has calcified into something harder. Ricardo found you. He was investigating a cooking school, looking for someone who might have been trained in the old way, the family way. He saw you. He said there was something about the way you moved through a kitchen that reminded him of... He reminded him of the videos. Videos. I realized there must be footage. Of Isabel. Of her hands. Her precision. Her face. He brought me the footage of you preparing a meal at the restaurant where you worked. And Julia, my name on his lips, is like a knife being drawn across something delicate. I watched you work, and for the first time in 4 years, I saw her. Not a copy, not a replacement, but something connected, something that understood the language she spoke. That's not love, I say quietly. That's haunting. I know. He moves toward me again, and this time when I see what he's going to do, I don't pull away. He reaches for my face, his rough fingers cradling my cheekbone with a gentleness that seems impossible coming from his hands. This is why I sent you away. Because the moment I hired you, I started losing the ability to see you as something separate from her. And you deserve better than that. You deserve to be yourself. But you're bringing me back. Yes. Why? He leans forward. His forehead touches mine. When he speaks, his breath is warm against my mouth. Because I'm not capable of better, he says. And because maybe, just maybe, she sent me someone who's brave enough to stand in her place and demand to be seen anyway. Because the alternative is the rest of my life alone with her ghost. He kisses me then. Not with passion. With something slower and more dangerous. A kiss that tastes like surrender and guilt, and the desperate hope that grief can be transformed into something that keeps you alive, instead of killing you slowly. I should pull away. Every rational part of me screams that this is the moment to run. But I taste something on his mouth that reminds me of the Zabaglione, something built on faith, something that collapses easily, something that might become something impossible if neither of us panics. So I don't run. I stay in his kitchen, and let myself become the ghost between them. 2 weeks later, I discover that keeping secrets from Alessandro Moretti is like trying to hide fire. It happens at night, in the penthouse, in the study lined with books that Alessandro doesn't read, and photographs he can't look at. We're sitting on opposite sides of an enormous leather desk, him reviewing documents that make his jaw tighten, me trying to pretend I'm not noticing the way his hands shake slightly. Your cousin's family wants a meeting, he says without preamble. I look up. What? The Rousseau shipping family. Claude Rousseau, Isabelle's father, he's dying. Cancer. His lawyers have made inquiries about reconciliation with the Italian branch of the family. Someone mentioned that a woman named Giulia Sartori is working for you. The room tilts slightly. How do they know my name? Because I had Margot feed them information. He sets down the document. I needed to see if they would reach out. If they would try to use you. Use me for what? Leverage. Isabelle's estate was substantial. The marriages between Moretti and Rousseau families would have been profitable for everyone. But when Isabelle died, that changed. Isabelle's father blamed me. She'd been diagnosed with a condition not publicly, but the family knew. He was against the marriage. Thought I'd married her anyway to access the Rousseau shipping interests. Did you? Yes, he says calmly. Then I fell in love with her. The order of operations is somewhat immaterial. It's not. I stand up. If you married her for money, I married her because her father offered me a position in the company that would have destroyed the Moretti business and installed Rousseau control of our territory. He watches me with complete stillness. I married her because saying no would have started a war. And then somewhere in the process of controlling her, of using her as leverage, she looked at me like I was something worth looking at, and I became the thing I was pretending to be. It's the most honest thing he said to me. What did her father think about the marriage? That I'd tricked him. That I'd taken his daughter, settled into Moretti territory with Rousseau money, and then let her die. Alessandro's voice is very quiet. He was right. It is my fault. If I hadn't married her, she would have been in Switzerland with specialist doctors. She would have been alive. I sit back down. Slowly, carefully, like approaching something that might shatter. What was the condition? Something that weakened the heart. Treatable, supposedly, with proper intervention. Isabelle refused treatment. She said she didn't want to spend the time we had together in hospitals. She said she wanted to cook, and love me, and have real moments instead of extended dying. He pauses. She was 23 when she made that choice, 28 when she died in this penthouse. In our bedroom, because her heart simply stopped while I was asleep. I can't breathe. Her father blamed me. Her family blamed me. The Rousseau family cut all ties with anyone who defended the marriage. He picks up the document again, and now Claude Rousseau is dying, and his lawyers are making gentle inquiries about reconciliation, about whether the Moretti family would consider a partnership again, and they're very interested in you. I'm not a bargaining chip, I say. No. But you're connected to them through blood, and you're connected to me through whatever this is. He gestures around the space between us. That makes you valuable. To them, yes, but also to me, which means I need to know exactly what they want before they get close enough to ask for it. Over the next days, I learn that Alessandro Moretti has spent the last 4 years building barriers. The penthouse becomes a fortress. Security increases. Margot is always present, always armed, always watching. I'm not supposed to leave without protection. I'm not supposed to check my phone without him seeing who's contacted me. I'm not supposed to cook for anyone except him. It's not imprisonment. Not quite. But the walls are certainly closing. Your cousin called, he tells me on the 5th day. Isabelle's younger brother, French name Laurent. He's flying to Milan to meet with you. When? Tomorrow. And you'll be there. Yes, in the room, listening to every word. That's not fair to him. He might want to actually speak with me. He wants to understand who you are and what you know about Moretti operations, Alessandro says flatly. The conversation will be brief and useless, but I think about Laurent, about having family that knows who Isabelle was, about having someone connect me to something beyond this dangerous, fragile thing building between Alessandro and me. When Laurent arrives blonde like his sister, with eyes that are startlingly kind for someone in a family like that, I make a decision. I slip away. It takes 3 minutes. While Margot is distracted by a call from Alessandro, while he's in the bathroom preparing for the meeting, I text Laurent from a phone I stole from the kitchen. Back entrance. 2 minutes. We're in a car and moving through Milan traffic before Alessandro realizes I'm gone. He'll kill me, Laurent says, but he's also driving faster, taking streets that win through the city in ways that would make surveillance difficult. He won't kill you. You're a Rousseau, and you're connected to both of us, which makes you infinitely more dangerous to him than I am. Laurent glances at me. Why did you come with me? Because I need to know who she was, I say. Not the wife of Alessandro Moretti, not the ghost in the kitchen. I need to know who Isabelle was as a person. He drives in silence for a long moment. She was my older sister, he finally says, which meant she was the one who understood the rules of our world before I did. She was funny in a sharp way. She asked impossible questions, and she was sick for longer than anyone wanted to admit, because she kept it hidden so successfully that everyone forgot to treat her like she was dying. Did she love him? Alessandro? I think, Laurent says carefully. She convinced herself she did. And eventually, maybe she was right. But first, she was terrified. And then she was trapped. And then those feelings got mixed together. And who really knows where one stops and the other begins? My phone buzzes. Alessandro. 12 text messages. Then a call. I don't answer. He's going to burn the city looking for you, Laurent says. I know. And when he finds you, then I'll know what he's actually willing to do, I say, rather than wondering, which is when Laurent's car is T-boned by a black SUV, and we're spinning sideways into a storefront, and I understand that the walls closing in on me were never about protection. They were about isolation. And now I'm about to learn exactly who Alessandro Moretti becomes when someone takes what he's decided belongs to him. I wake up in a room I don't recognize. It's white, aggressively white. Walls, ceiling, linoleum floor. There's a hospital smell, antiseptic, and something underneath that's vaguely sweet and slightly nauseating. I'm lying on a white bed with white sheets. My left arm is in a cast. There's an IV in my right. I don't remember the pain. I remember the impact, the sound of metal folding, glass shattering, gravity becoming very real. Then nothing. The door opens. Margot enters, and she's no longer trying to hide the gun. It's holstered prominently, visible, a statement. Welcome back to consciousness, she says. You've been out for 36 hours. Concussion, 2 broken ribs, fractured ulna. You're lucky. Laurent Rousseau is in intensive care. He might not make it. Where am I? Private hospital. Completely controlled. Don't bother yelling or trying to leave. The door is locked. The windows don't open. The only person who can authorize your release is Alessandro. Where is he? Handling the problem. Margot sits in a chair across from me. Her expression is carefully neutral, but I can see something in her eyes that might be pity. You should have stayed in the penthouse. You should have just listened. He locked me in a room disguised as freedom. Yes, because he's terrified that you're going to leave, and because he's right to be terrified. She leans forward. Do you know what he's doing right now? He's having a conversation with the men who hit Laurent's car. He's finding out who sent them. And then he's making sure it doesn't happen again. By killing them? By becoming a version of himself that hasn't needed to exist in the last 4 years. The version that built the Moretti Empire in the first place. She stands. I'll bring you food. Don't try to remove the IV. She leaves. The door locks with an audible click. I spend the next hours trying to catalog what I know and what I don't. I know Laurent is hurt because of me. I know Alessandro sent someone to extract me, which means I belong to him in some official capacity he's decided on. I know that breaking the rules in his world has consequences that extend beyond me. I don't know how long he'll keep me here. I don't know what he'll do when he returns. He arrives at midnight. I know it's midnight because the clock on the wall shifts from 11:59 to 12, and exactly 4 seconds later, the door opens, and Alessandro walks in. He's covered in blood. It's on his shirt. His hands. There's a spray pattern on the left side of his face that looks like someone else's arterial fluid. He's still wearing the same suit he left in. He hasn't changed. Hasn't cleaned himself. He sits on the edge of my bed and just looks at me. You broke protocol, he says quietly. I'm not a soldier. No. You're worse. You're a woman who watched her cousin drive her toward danger and got in the car anyway. He reaches out, touches my face with one blood-stained hand. Tell me why. Because I needed to know if I was making a choice to be here, or if you were making it for me. Both, he says. You made the choice to get in that car. I made the choice to come after you. Both things are true. Laurent could die. Yes. He doesn't look away. That was the cost of your independence. This is what happens when you walk out of my protection. People die instead of you. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Julia. He takes my face between his hands, and I should be terrified by the blood, by the violence embedded in his presence, but what I feel instead is a terrible kind of closeness. 4 years ago, I had a wife who made that same choice. She chose to leave her father's house and be with me instead of getting treatment. She chose to stay in this city instead of going to Switzerland. She chose comfort and love over her own survival, and she died, and I couldn't save her. He's shaking. For the first time since I've known him, Alessandro Moretti is shaking. I spent the last 4 years telling myself that if I could control everything, that if I could control the people around me, control the environment, control the choices, then I could prevent that ending again. His voice breaks. Then you came into my kitchen and reminded me that Isabel is gone, that I can't cook her back from the dead, that the only thing I can do is not lose you too. I'm not her, I say. I know. He rests his forehead against mine. Believe me, I know. You're angrier than she was. You're more stubborn. You taste different. You ask questions instead of just accepting. You make me want to be better instead of darker. And that terrifies me because good things die too. So does the plan to keep me locked in hospital rooms. I'm aware. He pulls back. That's why I'm going to let you leave tomorrow. But you're going to come back to the penthouse. You're going to cook in the kitchen. And you're going to let me pretend I have some control over whether you stay. And if I don't come back, he stands. He walks to the window which, I realize, actually does have a view of Milan. Of the nightlights spreading like a dark constellation. His silhouette is stark against it. Exhausted, older than he was this morning. Then, I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that the closest I got to having something real again was the sound of you whisking eggs in a marble kitchen at 5 a.m. He leaves before I can answer, and I lie in that white room with my broken arm and my shattered ribs, and I realize that love for someone like Alessandro Moretti isn't a choice you make once and move on. It's a choice you make every morning, every moment you decide to stay instead of run. It's the same choice Isabel made, and she died anyway. It's the same choice he's making now. And maybe that's all love ever is, faith that something built on grief might somehow become something strong. I keep my promise. I return to the penthouse. The marble kitchen waits like a stage set from a previous life. I make the zabaglione every Tuesday and Friday morning, and Alessandro sits at the counter, watching with the intensity of a man studying something that might disappear. But everything is different now. He doesn't hide his surveillance. Margot is always present, But she's stopped pretending to be invisible. There are security cameras in every room. My phone has been replaced with one that tracks my location. I'm not allowed to open the front door without someone accompanying me. And yet, something in him is softening. It happens in small moments. The first time is 3 weeks in. I'm preparing dinner, something simple risotto with mushrooms and black truffle, and I burn my hand on the edge of a hot pan. It's a minor burn, maybe half an inch of red skin on the inside of my wrist. Alessandro, who is usually controlled, who keeps his hands to himself unless he's calculated the interaction down to the millisecond, moves instantly. He pulls my hand under cold water, holds it there, and doesn't let go for 5 minutes. His other hand is on the back of my neck, pressing gently, like he's trying to ground both of us in something real. I'm fine, I say. You're not. His voice is rough. You're hurt, and you didn't even flinch. It's just a burn. It's evidence that you're bleeding and I didn't notice. He releases my hand, but only to retrieve the medical kit, which he apparently keeps in the kitchen, because of course he does. He wraps my wrist carefully, precisely. Isabel used to say that she could handle pain, that she was stronger than her body's limitations. She thought she could will herself into health. He finishes the wrapping. His fingers linger on my skin. I should have made her see a doctor, he continues. I should have carried her to the hospital, forced the intervention. She refused. Instead, I let her cook and love me, and slowly die. That's not the same as this. This is a burn. Every burn, every cut, every time you're hurt, and I don't prevent it, that's one more failure. One more proof that I can't actually keep anything safe. I reach up with my unburned hand and touch his face. He stills like I've shot him. Then let me be broken, I say quietly. Let me burn. Let me make the choice to stay anyway. He closes his eyes. When he opens them again, something essential has cracked. The second moment comes a week later. I find him in the study at 3 a.m, drunk on whiskey that costs more than my monthly salary. There are photographs spread across his desk. Video stills printed on paper. He's trying to write something, a letter, maybe, or a confession. His handwriting is destroyed by alcohol and grief. Come here, he says when he sees me. I sit beside him. He's wearing only an undershirt and dress pants, his normally immaculate appearance shattered. He smells like expensive alcohol, and something raw underneath. Do you know what the worst part is? He asks, gesturing to the photographs. It's not that she died. It's that everyone wanted to kill me for it. The Rusios wanted her avenged. The other families wanted it to be proof that I was weak, and all I wanted was to understand why she wouldn't fight, why she just accepted. He picks up one of the photographs. It shows Isabel in a hospital room. Though you can barely see it, the image is fuzzy, taken through a window. Her face is visible, though. She's smiling. She was in Switzerland, Alessandro continues. I took her there finally, after it became obvious that refusing treatment meant she was actively dying. She spent 2 months in a hospital, and every video call, every letter, she was fine. She was happy. She sent me a recipe. Did you know that? I don't say anything. The Zabaglione. She sent it to me from her hospital room. Said she wanted me to have something to remember her by that was light instead of heavy, that she wanted me to think of her as the kind of thing that floats. He sets the photograph down. When she died, I went to the hospital. I saw her body. I asked the doctors what happened, and they told me that she'd stopped her medication 3 months before the end, that she'd been using the hospital as cover while she was actually getting worse, that she chose to die. The words hang in the white room. I married her because I wanted to control something, and she married me for a reason I still don't understand, and she died because she decided that control was a waste of both our time. He looks at me with eyes that are drowning. So what's the point, Julia? What's the point of anything if the people you're trying to protect decide that they'd rather not be protected? I could tell him that Isabel was terrified and used philosophy as a shield, that she died because she was exhausted and sick and decided that the idea of recovery was worth less than the fantasy of an ending on her own terms. I could tell him that none of it was his fault, and all of it was, and neither statement matters because she's still dead. Instead, I stand. I walk to the door. I lock it. Then I walk back to him, take the glass of whiskey from his hand, and kiss him. It's not soft. It's angry and desperate, and tastes like alcohol and bitter grief. His hands come up, gripping my waist, and he pulls me onto his lap. He kisses me like he's trying to remember what it feels like to be alive, like he's trying to prove that some things can't be dissolved into light. I pull away, breathless. I'm not going to be the thing that makes your life make sense. I tell him. I'm not going to redeem your marriage or justify Isabel's death. I'm here because I'm choosing to be, and that's all you get." He stares at me for a long moment, then he laughs. It's a broken sound, like something cracking from the inside, but it's laughter. "God, you're infuriating," he says. "Yes, you're going to make my life difficult. Absolutely. You should run. You should get out while you still can. I could have done that. I chose this instead." I stand, reach down, and pull him toward the bedroom. "So stop trying to decide if I'm making a mistake, and just accept that I'm making a choice." He follows. He's still drunk, still broken, but he follows. And when he kisses me in the darkness of his bedroom, it tastes like surrender, like faith that maybe, even for someone like him, the world doesn't have to be about control. Maybe it can just be about showing up. The call comes on a Tuesday morning. I'm in the kitchen, and the zabaglione is half-finished eggs whisked to pale ribbons, the moment before it becomes something impossibly light. Alessandro is at the counter, his hand wrapped around a coffee cup that he's been nursing for 10 minutes without drinking. His phone buzzes. He doesn't look at it. That's how I know it's bad. "You should take that," I say. He does. I watch his expression change. Not dramatically, he's too controlled for that, but I can see the light in his eyes sharpen into something dangerous. "When?" he asks. A pause. "Where?" Another pause. "I'm on my way." He hangs up. He sets the phone on the counter with careful precision. He takes a sip of the now cold coffee, and he doesn't meet my eyes. "What happened?" I ask. "There's been a situation with one of the shipments. I need to go handle it." "What kind of situation?" "The kind where I can't tell you the details and you're safer not knowing them." He stands. He walks to the kitchen and pulls on his jacket. It's a black leather piece that's been broken in by violence. "Margot will stay with you. Don't leave the penthouse. Alessandro, I'll be back by evening," he says. And it's the tone he uses when he's lying, or when he knows he's lying but has decided it doesn't matter. He's not back by evening. He's not back the next day either. By the third day, I'm moving through the penthouse like a ghost. Margot has become tighter, more tense, spending more time on her phone. The security increases. More guards appear at the door. I catch fragments of conversations about police movements, rival families, territory disputes. On the fourth day, I steal Margot's access to the news. It takes a video, nothing too explicit, but enough. The Moretti warehouse in the south of the city has been seized by police. 17 people are in custody. There's investigation into money laundering, trafficking, and the murder of a competitor 3 years ago. The names they're releasing are careful, methodical minor players, people who don't matter. But the implication is clear. The Moretti organization is under siege. At midnight on the fourth day, Alessandro comes home. He moves through the penthouse like something that's been broken and reassembled without all the parts. There's an injury on his left side that he's trying to hide by favoring his right. His suit is torn at the collar. His hands are shaking. I'm waiting in the study. "Don't," he says before I can speak. "Don't ask me anything. Don't tell me you were worried. Just don't. Where were you? Helping the people I've hurt try to survive what's coming." He moves to the bar, pours something that isn't whiskey, drinks it. "The investigation is going to expand. They're going to look into everything. They're going to follow the money, trace the operations, find the names, and they're going to come looking for me. What will they find? Evidence that I murdered someone, that I ordered the deaths of at least 6 other people, that I've been embezzling capital through legitimate businesses for 20 years. He sets down the glass. That I'm guilty of crimes that would keep me in prison for the rest of my life. I realize I haven't actually thought about this. I've been so focused on the man that I haven't fully integrated the fact that he's a criminal, that the money, the penthouse, the power, it's all built on violence and corruption. What happens now? I ask. I need to decide whether to run or turn myself in. And more importantly, I need to figure out what to do with you. I don't need you to figure me out. Yes, you do. He finally looks at me, and his eyes are so tired they barely look human. Because if I stay, they'll investigate everyone close to me. They'll find out that you've been living here, working as my personal chef. They'll want to know what you know. They might arrest you as an accomplice. I haven't done anything. You have. You've been living off money gained through criminal enterprise. You've been part of my life, which makes you guilty of association, if nothing else. In the eyes of the law, proximity to me is enough. He walks to the window that overlooks the city that's about to swallow him. Or, he continues, I can disappear. I can take what money I can liquidate, and I can leave. I can go somewhere that doesn't have extradition treaties, and I can build a life that's hidden. I have options. Not good ones, but options. Will you ask me to come with you? No. The word is definitive. Why not? Because I'm the thing that kills people, Julia. I've spent 4 years trying to be someone different, trying to be someone who cooks light food and remembers dead wives and believes in transformation. And 4 days without the penthouse, without the control, without the ability to pretend, and I'm right back to who I actually am. He turns. His expression is carved from stone. I've already decided. I'm going to turn myself in. I'm going to face trial. And I'm going to spend the next 25 years in prison. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Because the alternative is running. And running means you'd have to make a choice, stay here and face investigation, or leave everything and come with me. And I won't let you make that choice. I won't be the thing that ruins your life. You don't get to decide that for me. Yes, I do. His voice hardens. I get to decide it because I'm the only one who understands what I am. I'm the only one who knows what kind of damage I cause. And the most loving thing I can do is make sure you're not in my path when I finally collapse. He walks to the desk. He picks up his phone. He's already calling someone. Margot. I'm ready to make the call. Tell the lawyers to prepare for surrender. He hangs up before I can speak. You have until tomorrow evening to decide if you're going to stay in Milan or if you're going to leave, he tells me. Either way, I'm gone. You're free of me, and you're going to stay free. That's the only thing I'm keeping from you. He leaves the study. I hear the bedroom door close, and I understand, finally, that you can't save someone who's already decided to surrender. You can only decide whether to drown with them. He doesn't make it to the surrender. I find out at 6 a.m. when police arrive at the penthouse with a warrant. They come through the front door with vests and weapons, and Margot's hand moves toward her gun before she realizes what's happening and lets them take her instead. Alessandro is already gone. They search the penthouse for 2 hours. They find evidence of his crime empire documents, photographs, recordings. They find the study where he kept his dead wife's memory organized and labeled. They find the kitchen where he tried to resurrect something he'd lost. What they don't find is him. Where is he? The lead detective asks me, his expression hard. He's a big man with gray eyes that have seen too much. He's been trained to look at people like they're problems to be solved. I don't know. You're his girlfriend. He wouldn't leave without talking to you. He did. He left while I was asleep. The detective doesn't believe me. That's clear. But he also doesn't have enough to hold me. Not yet. They confiscate my phone, take statements, suggest that I'm in danger and should cooperate. I don't cooperate. By evening, I've been released without charge. Margot isn't so lucky. She's booked for obstruction and firearm possession. The penthouse is sealed. I'm standing on the street with nothing except the clothes I'm wearing, and the terrible certainty that Alessandro has either run or done something worse. It takes 2 days to find out which. The body is found in the South District, in an abandoned building that used to be part of the Moretti operations. It's been identified through DNA as Riccardo, the pale, scarred man who watched me cook. He's been shot twice in the chest and once in the head. The investigators are treating it as a mob execution. But I know, somehow, that it isn't. I know because I understand the language of what Alessandro is doing. He's cleaning up. He's erasing the people who could testify against him. He's building a case that Riccardo was the real criminal, the one who organized the operations, the one who was actually guilty, and he's willing to kill for it, or willing to take the fall for it, depending on how the story needs to be told. I find myself thinking about Isabel, about a woman who decided that dying on her own terms was better than being saved on someone else's. I find myself understanding, for the first time, that maybe she knew exactly what she was doing. Maybe she knew that Alessandro would spend the rest of his life trying to save her if she didn't die. That love, for someone like him, was a form of control, and the only way to escape it was to remove herself entirely from the equation. The third night after his disappearance, I'm walking through the city when a car pulls up beside me. Black, unmarked, the kind of vehicle that collects people. Margot is driving. Get in, she says. I should run. Every instinct tells me to run. Instead, I get in. He didn't kill Riccardo, Margot tells me, pulling into traffic with the competence of someone who's driven 1,000 getaway routes. But he's going to let them think he did. He's constructing a confession. He's going to walk into the police station and take responsibility for everything. The current operation, the historical crimes, all of it. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. to give his organization time to disappear. Why are you telling me this? Because he asked me to. He asked me to give you a choice. She drives me to a train station, Central. She hands me a new passport under a name that isn't mine, and a ticket to Barcelona, and money enough to disappear for a year if I'm careful. He wanted you to have the option, Margot says, to leave, to become someone else, to never be connected to any of this again. And if I don't use it, then in approximately 4 hours, he's going to turn himself in. And in approximately 6 hours, his lawyers are going to call me, and I'm going to give them a name, the name of someone who witnessed the crime, someone who can corroborate his confession. My name. She's going to give them my name. If I disappear, he goes to prison for your silence. If you disappear, he's a man who protected the woman he loved by ensuring her escape. It's the kind of narrative that works in court. It's the kind of narrative that makes him sympathetic. I look at the ticket. Barcelona. A new life that doesn't involve Zabaglione or marble kitchens, or a man who loves ghosts more than he loves people. I throw the ticket away. Take me to him, I say. Margot's expression doesn't change, but I see something shift in her eyes. Maybe respect, maybe pity. You're sure? No. But I'm choosing it anyway. She drives me to a building on the outskirts of the city, to a warehouse that's been abandoned since before I arrived in Milan. She leaves me at the door and walks away. No goodbye. No explanation. Alessandro is inside. He's sitting on a crate in the center of an empty space, the kind of place where sound dies and there's nothing left but the echo of your own breathing. There's blood on his sleeve, fresh blood, still wet. You didn't use the ticket, he says. No. You should have. Yes. I walk toward him, but I'm not going to. He stands. When I get close enough to see his face clearly, I realize he's been crying. It's the only thing that would make his expression make sense, raw, devastated, destroyed. I'm going to turn myself in, he says. In 3 hours, I'm going to confess to crimes I didn't commit and take responsibility for operations that will continue without me. I'm going to spend the next 25 years in prison. I know. I did this so you could be free. I know. And I rejected it. He reaches out and grabs my face, pulling me toward him with the kind of desperation that's usually reserved for drowning. When he kisses me, it tastes like goodbye, like the last moment before a guillotine falls. If you stay, he says, breaking the kiss, there will be investigation, there will be questioning, there will be years of uncertainty while I'm locked away, and you're trying to build a life in the shadow of what I am. Yes, and you're still choosing it. Yes. He presses his forehead against mine. Then I'm going to go to prison knowing that one thing, at least, I managed not to destroy, he whispers. That one person chose me anyway. We don't make love. We hold each other in that empty warehouse, and the holding is its own kind of violence. 3 hours later, Alessandro walks into police headquarters and confesses to everything. And I wait in the penthouse, in the marble kitchen, and I bake Zabaglione for a man who won't be there to eat it. The trial lasts 4 months. I attend every day. I sit in the gallery and watch Alessandro sit in the defendant's chair, his expression composed, his answers measured. His lawyer, a brilliant woman named Farina, who cost money. I don't understand the source of tries repeatedly to create doubt. She suggests that the confession might be false, that he might be protecting someone else, that the evidence is circumstantial. Alessandro contradicts her at every turn. He doesn't fight. He doesn't defend himself. He simply explains, with the kind of detail that only someone who's actually done these things would know, exactly how the Moretti organization functioned, how money was moved, how rivals were eliminated, how silence was maintained. It's performance, I realize. It's precisely calibrated testimony designed to close the case as quickly and as thoroughly as possible. He's not defending himself. He's ensuring that the investigation stops here, that it doesn't spiral outward into his organization, into the people who still work for him. The sentence is 28 years. On the day he's taken to the prison, a high-security facility in the north, I finally break down. Not at the trial, not during the formal proceedings. I break down in the penthouse, in the kitchen, while attempting to make the Zabaglione, and finding that my hands have forgotten how. Margot finds me there, whisk clattering to the marble floor, eggs raw and separated and ruined. He knew you'd do this, she says flatly. She starts cleaning up. She's been tending to me like I'm a wounded animal, which I suppose I am. He knew that you'd try to preserve something of him by maintaining the routine. He asked me not to, I say. My voice doesn't sound like my own. It sounds like something that's been broken down to component parts. He asked me to move on. To have a life that isn't about waiting for him. Did you listen? No. Margot hands me the cleaned whisk. Then make the cake. You'll make it for the next 28 years, and it won't matter whether he eats it or not. What matters is that you're still here, that you didn't leave. That night, I moved to a smaller apartment. I can't afford the penthouse, and besides, it's been seized as proceeds of crime. The apartment is in the Brera district, close to a small cafe that will eventually hire me as a pastry chef. I set up a kitchen that's 1/10 the size of the Moretti Marble Palace, with equipment I buy secondhand, with a single shelf for my instruments, and I make zabaglione. Every Tuesday and Friday morning, at 5:47 a.m., I whisk eggs and sugar over gentle heat. I measure the vanilla twice. I fold in the wine with precision. And I bake a cake that nobody eats. I pack it in plastic wrap. I label it with the date. I stack it in a small freezer, building an archive of mornings. By month 3, I have 12 frozen cakes. By month 6, I have 24. Margot visits sometimes. She brings news. Alessandro is adjusting. He's not in trouble with the other inmates. He hasn't tried to maintain control over his organization. He's done something much smarter. He's disappeared into prison so completely that his organization has dissolved naturally, without his guidance. Because it never was about business. It was always about him. He asked about you, Margot tells me one evening over coffee. He wanted to know if you were okay. What did you tell him? The truth. That you're heartbroken. That you're waiting for someone who won't be free for another 27 years. That you're the saddest person I've ever met. I want to be angry with her for saying that. Instead, I recognize it as accurate. By month 9, I have enough frozen cakes that I consider what to do with them. I'm sitting in my small apartment, surrounded by plastic-wrapped zabaglione, when I make a decision that Alessandro would probably hate. I begin an Instagram account. The handle is simple, @zabaglione-morning. I post photographs of the cakes. Just the cakes, carefully lit, documented with date and time. No explanation, no story, just an image of something being made with precision and care, over and over, in a kitchen that's a fraction of the size of the one where it started. The account grows. By month 12, I have 50,000 followers. Food blogs are reaching out, asking about the method, the ingredient sourcing, the story. I don't respond. I just post the cakes. Tuesday and Friday, always 5:47 a.m. Someone I never find out who pieces together the story. The posts start appearing in articles about Alessandro Moretti, the imprisoned mafia boss, about the woman who loves him, about the cake she makes every morning, the quiet protest against separation, the evidence that some people choose sacrifice over sense. The attention brings lawyers back into my life. An appeal is filed, based on new evidence that includes an anonymous tip about who really orchestrated the earliest crimes in the Moretti portfolio. The charges begin to shift. The case, which seemed so airtight, begins to show cracks. It takes another year. But finally, the conviction is overturned. The evidence that sentenced Alessandro becomes suspect. The confession, which seemed so thorough, begins to look orchestrated. He's released on a Tuesday morning. I'm making zabaglione when Margot tells me. The eggs are at the correct temperature. My hand is steady. But when she says the words, "He's coming for you," the whisk slips from my fingers. He's at my apartment before I can process it fully. He looks exactly like himself, and completely changed. The prison has carved him into something sharper. There's less softness, but there's also less pretense. He looks at me like he's seeing me for the first time. "You made the cake," he says, looking at the freezer full of plastic-wrapped zabaglione. "All these years you made the cake, every Tuesday and Friday. You should have moved on." Yes, he reaches for me. This time, when he pulls me close, it doesn't feel like goodbye. It feels like finally admitting that something impossible is real. "I spent 4 years telling myself that you'd left," he whispers into my hair. "That you'd taken the ticket, gone to Barcelona, become someone else. Because that's what you deserved. That's the only ending that made sense. And now? Now I realize that some people don't choose the sense ending. They choose the hard one. The one that requires faith in something that might collapse." He kisses me, and it tastes like the first breath after drowning. "I'm not going to ask you to wait anymore," he says. I pull back to look at him. "I'm done," he continues. "I'm done with the organization. Done with the life. I'm done being the kind of man that attracts violence. I want to be the kind of man who just stays. Who cooks breakfast. Who doesn't destroy everything he touches. Can you do that? I don't know. But I can try. I can do it with you. I can make zabaglione in a kitchen this small, with someone who's spent 3 years of her life proving she's not going to leave. We move together back toward the bedroom, and for the first time in 28 months, neither of us is thinking about ghosts. The wedding is small. We do it on a Friday morning at 5:47 a.m. in the kitchen, where I've been making zabaglione for 3 years. Margot is there. Farina, the lawyer, is there. A priest who apparently owes Alessandro a substantial favor is there. There are 4 witnesses, and a judge, who looks like he's seen stranger things in his career and wants to move on. Alessandro wears a gray suit that fits his shoulders perfectly. I wear a white dress that I made myself, because no one else understood the precision required. We don't exchange vows. Instead, we make the cake together. He whisks the eggs while I measure the sugar. We stand side by side at the counter, our hands moving in synchronization that only comes from watching someone work for years, from knowing them not just from their words, but from the way they breathe, the way they move, the way their hands know things their minds haven't articulated. This part, he says, watching as I add the sugar in specific fractions. She taught me this. The patience, the understanding that some things can't be rushed. Isabel? Yes. She said that rushing was a form of violence. That if you really loved something, you gave it the time it needed to become itself. I set down the measuring spoon. I look at him. I'm not her, I say. I need to say it one more time, before we do this. I'm not Isabel. I'm never going to be Isabel. I'm not a replacement, and I'm not a continuation, and I'm not a second chance to get the first thing right. He sets down the whisk. He turns to face me completely. I know, he says, and I can see it in his expression that he finally, truly means it. I spent 4 years trying to cook Isabel back from the dead, and she never came. And then you walked into my kitchen, and I tried to convince myself that you were her, that somehow the universe had sent me another chance. But that was me being afraid. That was me looking for a way to not have to love someone living. And now I love you. Not because you're like her, because you're you, because you looked at a man who was trying to destroy himself, and you decided to destroy yourself alongside him, and somehow we ended up on the other side of it, alive. He reaches over and finishes adding the sugar to the eggs. This part, he says, as we watch the mixture begin to pale, is yours. This transformation, this is what you taught me. That some things that start broken can still become light. We marry making zabaglione. When it comes out of the oven, golden and perfect and impossible, everyone applauds. The priest declares us joined in the eyes of God and the Italian government. Margot hands me a ring that I recognize it was Isabel's, placed in storage after her death, retrieved by Alessandro 3 months after his release. I almost refuse it. Then I see what he's written on the inside. Tiny letters engraved beside Isabel's initials, for whoever chooses to stay. I put it on. After the ceremony, after the small celebration with champagne that costs more than my apartment, after everyone leaves except Margot, we stay in the kitchen. We don't speak. We wash dishes together. The intimacy of routine, of knowing exactly where someone will move before they move. What happens now? I ask. I was thinking, Alessandro says, handing me a plate to dry, that maybe we open something, not a restaurant, something smaller, a cafe maybe, a place where we make zabaglione in the morning and sell it to people who want something that tastes like faith. That's very domestic for a man who spent 4 years in prison. I'm trying something different. He pulls out the draining water, watches it spiral down the sink. Margot's going to help. She's done with the criminal life too. She wants to bake. Margot? She makes excellent panna cotta. She has a gift for things that require patience and precision. It's such a normal sentence, about such a normal thing. We're talking about opening a cafe. We're talking about life after, about the possibility that you can be destroyed by something and still move forward into something gentle. 3 weeks later, we find the space. It's a small storefront in the Navigli district, near the canal. The bones of it are good old brick, high ceilings, a kitchen that's been used by someone who knew what they were doing. We renovate carefully. We don't change the essential nature of the place. We just clean it. Make it ours. The zabaglione opens on a Friday morning at 5:47 a.m. We make the cake. We pack it in single servings, dusted with powdered sugar, wrapped in paper that we've designed ourselves. We set out a small table with coffee, and nothing else. No decoration, no music, just the sound of the city waking, and the smell of a cake that tastes like transformation. The first customer arrives at 6 a.m., then another. By noon, we've sold out. Alessandro stands behind the counter, serving coffee, and I watch how he's changed. He's softer, not weak, but softer. There's less of the calculating danger that used to define his movements. He smiles at customers. He remembers names. He talks about the cake like it's a living thing rather than a weapon. A woman comes in one afternoon. She's blonde, delicate, with eyes that remind me painfully of someone. She orders the Zabaglione, and when she tastes it, she cries. "My mother used to make this," she says. "I haven't had it in years." Alessandro hands her a napkin. He doesn't tell her about Isabel. He doesn't tell her that the cake is built from the grief of a dead wife. He just says, "I'm glad it brought back good memories." After she leaves, I ask, "Did you know her?" "No. But Isabel would have liked her. She would have wanted to know that something she created could survive her." We close the cafe at 3 p.m. every day. The rest of the afternoon is ours. We walk along the canal. We cook dinner in our small apartment. We make love with the kind of attention that comes from people who've learned to stop taking each other for granted. On Friday nights, we sit on the balcony of our apartment, and I make the Zabaglione there, not for any ritual, but because we both enjoy watching it, because in the act of watching something become light, we've learned something about ourselves. 6 months into the cafe's opening, Margot brings news. Laurent Rousseau is out of the hospital. He's recovered from his injuries. He's asking to meet Alessandro. We do it at the cafe, on a Friday morning. Laurent arrives at 7 a.m. He's thin from illness, but his eyes are still kind. Alessandro and Laurent look at each other across the small table. "My father died," Laurent says simply. 3 weeks ago. The lawyers found a letter he left. He wanted you to know that he'd figured it out. He knew that you didn't kill Isabel, that she killed herself slowly, and you were just the man she used as a reason. Alessandro's hand finds mine across the table. "He wanted to tell you," Laurent continues, "that he was sorry, for blaming you, for the investigation, for everything." "Too late," Alessandro says quietly. "Yes," Laurent agrees, "but I thought you should know anyway." He orders a Zabaglione. He eats it slowly. He cries the way the other woman cried, like taste can transport you backward, toward people you've lost. When he leaves money on the table. That's far too much, and he doesn't come back. But that's okay, because we understand now that some customers come to remember, others come to let go. And the Zabaglione, light as air, built on faith and patience and sugar and eggs, holds enough space for both. Epilogue. 3 years later, I wake up at 5:30 a.m. It's become instinct, not ritual. My body knows the time, even without the clock. I make coffee while Alessandro sleeps. I brush my teeth. I move through the darkness like I've moved through it 1,000 times before. At 5:47 a.m., I'm in the kitchen of our apartment, and the ritual that started as a code, that became a job, that became a testimony, has now become simply a part of how I exist. I whisk eggs and sugar over gentle heat. I measure the vanilla twice. I fold in wine with precision. The mixture becomes light. The apartment is warm. Outside, Milan is beginning to wake. The city that took everything from Alessandro and nearly destroyed me is simply mourning, ordinary, unremarkable, beautiful in its indifference. Alessandro comes up behind me, wraps his arms around my waist, rests his chin on my shoulder. "You're making it even when we don't need to sell it," he observes. "I know. You're making it because you love it." "Yes." He's quiet for a moment. The only sound is the whisking, the soft percussion of sugar and eggs becoming something transformed. "I was thinking," he says, "maybe we tell people about how this started, about Isabel, about everything that happened." I stop whisking. I look at him. Why? Because it's the truth. Because she deserves to be remembered as more than a ghost in a recipe. Because you deserve to be known as more than a woman who waited. I turn in his arms to face him. "If we tell the truth," I say, "people will judge you for it. They'll see you as the man who married for money, who loved a ghost, who spent years in prison for crimes he didn't commit but committed anyway. I know. I'm ready for that, and they'll judge me for staying, for being the woman who couldn't get over a dead wife, who cooked in someone else's shadow, who built something beautiful anyway," he finishes. "Something that feeds people, something that transforms grief into light. Yes, I know, and I think you should let them judge you." I think you should stop apologizing for loving me. I lean my forehead against his. The kitchen smells like Zabaglione. It always will. Okay, I say. We tell the story. Okay, he echoes. We finish making the cake together. When it comes out of the oven, it's perfect. It always is now. The failure is gone, replaced by the kind of precision that comes from knowing something, truly knowing it in your bones. We cut a slice. We sit at the table. We eat it slowly, the way people eat things that taste like memory but also taste like hope. And in the morning light, with Alessandro across from me, with the apartment full of warmth, with the knowledge that we chose this, all of it, the broken parts and the beautiful parts, and the parts that are both at once, I understand what Isabel was trying to tell us. Some things can't be rushed. Some things require faith. Some things that start as faith become real, if you're patient enough, brave enough, foolish enough to believe in them. The Zabaglione rises. The light holds. The grief transforms. And that, it turns out, is enough.